Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the review of Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 of 3. I am your host, JediMike7. You've probably seen this face before. Oh, wait, now you do. Yes, I am very looking forward to this review, but I'm not alone. I'm here with a few friends of mine, good people. You've probably seen their faces before. With the one, we'll start with ladies first, with the one, the only, my honorary auntie, Miss Vanessa Sharp.
Hi, my honorary auntie.
Yes.
We're here. We're representing one of the most unhinged villains in the universe, in the DC universe. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Crisis.
Yes, but we also got another person here who every day, every chance I get to remind him that this dude's old. Been watching him since middle school. My mentor, my friend, my partner in crime, Miss Samuel, or I should say Supercell 020, if you remember, for your old heads. But yeah.
Hi.
You feel old yet?
I've got a kid jumping in the background. Yes.
Ooh,
Yes,
time flies. Time flies. And speaking of time, we're going to be talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, which deals with time travel, multiverse, the whole nine and everything. And for those of you guys who do not know what the this popular comic title in the DC universe is, it's basically a culmination crossover event of multiverses that are going to be dying and basically diving in with different alternate versions of characters, different the death of characters, but also the death and rebirth of the DC universe. And it's a very iconic storyline in comics, but this is the first time we're actually diving into an animated film. We did get a live action, at least interpretation of it on the CW. A little to be desired on that. But this is actually the first animated film kind of diving more into the comics and what it goes into. But first, I just try to start with Vanessa. What was your initial thoughts from one, the fact they're announcing they're making this film, and just overall feelings before we get into detail?
I think this is the only one. I'm not gonna lie. I think myself, like a lot of hardcore DC fans, are a little disappointed with the Tomorrowverse overall. Like, I get what they were trying to do, but I don't know. It wasn't hitting that. It hasn't been hitting as much as it should be. So when they announced Crisis, I was like, yes, this is one of my favorite storylines because I love multiverse stuff. I love it. I love just the way anytime they do a take on it, they always do their own interpretation of it. So I was excited to see what they were going to do with this. And now I've seen it. And it's something.
Yes, something is correct. Sam, just what your thoughts on this? I know me and Vanessa are very, very into comics and all this stuff, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think if you had talked to me maybe like 7 years ago, I'd probably legit be a little upset about their interpretation of how this is supposed to go. But I also went into this knowing, even from a year ago back at Comic-Con, that this is going to be in 3 parts. So I knew that we were going to get an inconsistent, incomplete story as it was. And at the same time, like when you have stories like that, the stakes are going to be completely different because you don't know when all of a sudden something's going to be reneged. You don't know when they're going to progress the storyline correctly. You don't know if they're going to interchange characters. And any of these animated features have always done that. Like some of the best have taken luxuries from what was, and then they switch the character up or switch the dynamic up. So for me, I thought this was I thought it was very entertaining, but it is an incomplete story. So I can't completely judge the narrative process of this. I do have an issue with the Tomorrowverse in the way that this aesthetically looks, but I've had that problem. So anything that they progress with at this point, I don't have a problem with, because even with the Long Halloween, I was like, man, the way that it looks is one thing, but the way that they executed it was freaking dope. So again, I'm gonna be very indifferent with some of the process behind this, but I do have somebody else that's gonna be coming in. So this is a secret, a person from another multiverse, and I'm gonna let him take the center stage. Hold on.
Oh boy.
I'm back. I was in a world where all they sung was Little Orphan Annie songs over and over again. Oh. Well, now time to a review. All right, what are we talking about
today? Well, and now that you're here, you haven't mentioned much. We're just getting started. First, what was your thoughts on the fact that they're announcing this film that is going to be split into 3 parts, and just knowing that, hey, what was your just first initial thoughts of the overall story that they're trying to tell in the animated version?
I thought it was ambitious. It's very ambitious, and definitely this is a story that you could take and definitely have different parts from different angles. Now, while I say it's ambitious, you know, can they live up to that ambition? That's another thing.
Yeah, for me now, you know, Sam, he touched on a good point talking about the Tomorrowverse. And for those of you guys who don't know, this is the continuity of the current DC animated films. We know that, you know, literally in a year from now, we're about to have a clean slate of new DC animated properties, live action films, etc. That's all can be connected under the umbrella of James Gunn. And this is the conclusion of that type of arc, which started with Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Continue on with Justice League, Justice Society, World War II, Legion of Superheroes, Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 and 2, Green Lantern, Beware My Power. That really hit me with that one. I was really upset with that one. But anyway, and Justice League World. And this is the continuity of in that terms of timeline where you're seeing these characters and arcs are taking. Now, the problem, again, as he's mentioned that it was being ambitious, you know, I do give you props for taking things, you know, creatively, you know, as a risk of making this property, because a big, you know, comic book tie-in, whether it's like, especially on Marvel, Infinity War, Secret Wars, whatever, there's left to be so many juggling characters, arcs, storylines and stuff, and to a point that can get really convoluted and really difficult for the audience member to actually, you know, dive into the story. But on the one hand, they have another issue with that, the fact that if you just have a convoluted universe just to start off with, now and trying to do a convoluted story on top of that, it makes things more like, wait, how am I following this? Oh, we're jumping timelines now. Oh, the Justice League here is now. Okay, cool. Oh, Vixen's here. Cool. All right. So yeah, so it's been very difficult to follow through that. But in terms of the film, I felt that at first I do appreciate them taking this type of creative risk, and I actually liked it better than some of the other Tomorrowverse films. Definitely Batman Long Halloween is on top there. But this one is actually my second favorite, aside from definitely addressing its problems, which we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. So as we started, this story mainly dives in more with the main character's film is The Flash. Barry Allen, be exact. And to me, I felt that was one of the biggest strong suits. This film was definitely dealing with the relationship between Barry Allen and Iris West. And the way they kind of structure this is that Barry is going through different phases of his life. You know, there's time where he's kind of displaced in time. So he's immediately going into different points from the future, past, present, or whatever, right? And we're following that as we're seeing him being, you know, first getting struck by lightning, you know, becoming the Flash, meeting Iris West for the first time, them getting married, and, you know, then going to the cinematic event of Crisis. And to me, I felt this was reasons why it reminded me why I love the Flash so much, right? You know, to me, one of my favorite DC characters of all time. Emotionally, I felt more relatable to him. The aspects of the fact that he has this power, and, you know, always like, well, I'm not fast enough, and we're always running out of time. This person who can literally, you know, go back in time, go to different universes, and still feeling like he's failing in his personal life and everything like that. To me, I feel like relatable to him, and I think this film definitely solidified the relationship between Iris West and Barry Allen and me, which is why it's on top in terms of my second favorite Tomorrowverse film aside from Batman. But Vanessa, what you thought about Barry Allen?
I love that they chose Barry to center the story around. I thought it was a good choice because he is, at the end of the day, like Crisis, when it originally happened, like the visual that I think the visual people remember most is Flash, the skeleton Flash disappearing, you know, getting kind of dissolving away. Like that's pretty iconic to the Crisis overall. And every interpretation of Crisis always had some sort of something like that. And so this movie choosing to center Barry's and Iris's love and him trying to just constantly trying to save the world and never feeling like he's doing it in time it was just really good. It was smart. And I think they realized, someone in Warner Brothers, Discovery, DC, whatever, realized that of all the mistakes and all of the whatever, that the Flash story writers, regardless if it's comics, if it's TV show, whatever, movies, whatever, there's always, the heart of the story is always a Flash and their lightning rod, whether it's Wally and Linda or Barry and Iris. That is something that is so important to being a Flash. I think it's reverberate. Like Flash is a real lover. Barry Allen's a real lover. Like he will do anything across time and space to be with Iris. I think that's so important, and I think that was so good for this movie to do that. They wasted so much time on other stuff. It was frustrating because I know that this could have been better because it just had such good potential, and I just wish that I wish they would have done. I wish it would have gone down a little bit differently. But I'm glad that they centered Barry in this because, yeah, Molly's leading the comics right now. Barry deserves a little shine. So.
Yeah. Sam? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I feel like with this, this goes down a certain problem that another very good game that I love personally, but I know other people had issues with, which is The Last of Us Part 2, which I'm not going to go into spoilers of that, but a lot of people had issues with it because it is very non-linear. They don't go from point A to point B. I think that if they would have progressed this with just showing Barry kind of going through the certain stages and then having small little moments where he's bleeding in and out, they've taken certain story arcs and interweaved them every single time, segmented, and it just becomes disjointed. So every single time you're focusing on the heart of this, which is the love story, as opposed to all the big things that are supposed to set the stage for the next two movies. And I think that the way they executed this in part one was just so inconsistent. And part of that is because that's the crux of it. Like, you're only doing this in an hour and 30 minutes of a story arc that is way vaster than that, right? So the things that worked in this worked very well, which is, again, Barry and Iris' story is so cute. It is amazing to watch. It is an actual pure love story. But then the other thing about it, if you go off of how the original animated stuff that we had coming off of Apocalypse War, the way that ended, the slate got wiped. And so it could be that same as that Barry is going to end up in all of this if it's not the same as that Barry, in which that's why I'm excited about it. And that's why I think the progression of the story is going to be fine going into the next two movies. It's just, again, this is an incomplete story because of how disjointed it is. Like, all these other things in this are cool, but the heart of this that works is Barry because he's the focal point he's the catalyst. He's the catalyst to springboard this trilogy, but it doesn't bode well for the constant in this movie because you don't really feel anything outside of Iris and Barry's relationship. But I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I keep slipping out of the time stream. Sorry about that. So I'm guessing the question is, what do I think about the story overall?
About Barry, talk about the best part. It really is Barry and Iris' relationship. That Barry's the main character of this film.
That storyline and that relationship saved this movie for me. I think Sam was talking about it. Like, you can do a story, you can do a Pulp Fiction where the ending is the beginning and the middles are all chopped up, but it takes a certain editorial skill and storytelling to do that effectively. When this could have focused more on Barry and Iris, and also, like, Barry's just a likable character. Like, he's such a likable character. He's so overpowered, but he doesn't come off that way. There's no arrogance or anger. Every iteration of Justice League stories, you kind of just love the Flash. And Mr. Gutston, I think he contributed a lot to that. I think he was a perfect fit for that. And yeah, I just this story and the love story between them, and when you realize that he slowed down time, but it was just them, and they were okay with that for decades. That was the heart of it. And when she disappeared, or did she die of a heart attack? Was that what happened?
Yeah, she just died of natural cause. Like, it was too much, and she just passed
died of old age. Yeah.
And Barry, you know what I thought about this when I was watching it? This is a whole love story, a whole thing happened that no one else is ever going to know about. Like, there's decades of their life. And in my headcanon, in the original comic, that's what happened. Outside in the regular time stream, we saw Barry just running and getting older. Oh, it must be the energy drink. No, he had to live out a whole life and do a whole bunch of stuff to get back and do this.
Right.
and that enhances it. Any add-on to a story, any retelling of a story, if it can add on something that I'll cherish, and that's part of the main canon of that story for me, it succeeded on some level. Now, the first two parts of this, we had all these other parts, they didn't do that so well.
Wait, I gotta say, hold on. How OP can someone be if they are also severely anxious and have imposter syndrome? Like, that takes it down a couple notches. Like, he can do everything, but that man can't. He's like, just like anxious all the time. Which I think it balances out.
My life.
Right. I see him. I feel seen.
Right. I was like, I feel like, yes. I was like, that's why I relate to Barry Allen so much. But, and speaking of that, like, because we dealt with, non-linear storytelling before that actually worked. The first couple seasons of Westworld, just for example, that actually, paid off. But with in this film, I felt some of the parts of it being non-linear worked, but because it was giving me the character moments that I actually wanted from this universe in the other films. So it's like, it'd be weird to say, okay, Jon Stewart is Barry Allen's best man. All right, where we see that relationship, fold.
Where did it come from? Right,
exactly. Because my logic is, well, from the Green Lantern film, it's like Barry, Ollie and Jon Stewart should be best friends. And then we see Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, show up and say he didn't want to join the Justice League and stuff, right? We see Bruce Wayne bringing in, a young Dick Grayson to Perry and telling, hey, I got nephew Wally, he's downstairs, play, and that to me, that put a smile on my face, because like that's the character building I want, for me to, so when I see these big payoffs or deaths or whatever you call, then you have the emotional weight that's backing it. And I felt that was kind of frustrating, just like, man, why can't we just get that in the other movies? But it's the clock. I get it. We're gonna have it's about to be a clean say anyway. So what's the point? But go ahead, Ant. What you about to say?
I was gonna say, when I was watching the film, and I was like, man, I really wish we could get that Flash, that Flash Green Lantern comic book run in animated form, like updated and things like that. And then it just switched off, and I was like, oh, okay, well, we're getting Jon Stewart, and I was like, okay, I get it, but I was like, oh, I'm missing out on this. I think DC has had a habit of rushing to the end. Like, I have a great idea how to end my story, so I'm going to forget all the thing that builds up to it, and let's go right here. And I feel like, imagine watching this movie where they already have this planned out. Let's say this is 5 years from now, but they do the story, and all of a sudden Batman's like, no, I can't take care of him. And then he comes back and is like, I've changed my mind. Like, here's your room, Dick. And you go through it, and you're like, oh crap, Flash has influenced all these different characters that come to this point. I know that's even more ambitious, but I'm just saying, when you do a time travel thing in a story, when you do multiverse, sometimes going back. I mean, did we all watch Attack on Titans?
Yes.
No.
So
no.
Okay.
Be careful.
Okay.
Check careful.
All right. Sorry. Anyway,
That's a meme
anyway, I don't know anything to say but when you have a time travel story, it's always really good to go back and go, oh, this wasn't forced in. Oh, that was there all along. Look at the back window of the house, the guy looking in, or what's one about in Scotland? Not Highlander. It's on now. It's like a romance drama. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The Outlander, when you go back, it's like, oh, that was Jamie's ghost or whatever. Like, I think that you can do these things in a better way. So like, I think it's almost like when they did Batman versus Superman. Great concept, but you're like 5 movies too early. Like, let us care about these things. And that's why I know we keep going back to this. Justice League Unlimited, every storyline hit so hard because we knew these characters. We cared about these storylines. We saw the growth. DC, you got all your characters. You ain't gotta buy no other companies get them. You got all these things. Take your time. Romance, throw us in there. Where the wine at? Where the candles? But talk to me, baby. It's all right.
Yeah, and that's the point I want to talk about with the relationship part, because you're absolutely right. Because like I said when we were watching this film, that it was like, why are we not seeing these moments of just Superman and Batman just sitting in a diner drinking coffee? Like why are we missing those moments? And that takes no CGI, just writing of a damn script, right? And I know everyone was joking like, no, you're asking too much. No, I'm not. Well, I'm asking is to kill two birds with one stone, so way that you don't have to go back and say, are you satisfied? I didn't have the full course.
I got a deep take, and I may be completely wrong with this, but if you look at everything that's happened to DC since the Flash movie, you can kind of tell, and it spreads not just with the movies, but also with the shows, like whether you call Titans, the CW, you can kind of tell they're trying to tie stuff up. They're really cutting the cord with where progressional storytelling should go because they're trying to get somewhere else. You could tell it the way the Flash ended. You could tell even with Blue Beetle the way it ended. You could tell with a lot of these, and specifically even with the animated Tomorrowverse, it seems like it's got to lead somewhere, but it's like throwing away a good narrative. Because the thing about it, we saw a really dope Superman show that ain't connected to none of this on Cartoon Network that may be one of the best Superman animated series that's come out since the original. And it has they went completely for it, and you can tell the DC folks are not as connected to it because they just went for it. And everything else is before that, and everything else that maybe until they completely revamp all this, it's going to be the same as that way. They are throwing away certain storylines to get to the narrative they want to. That's just my personal opinion. I can feel it with this. I felt it with the Tomorrowverse. I felt it with the way they've handled Doom Patrol, Titans, CW stuff. Like, it's all been like, yeah, we got these IPs, but we want to do what we want to do with it. Let's nix all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's this very spirit of why Crisis happened in the first place. Yep. Like, they were like, they were like, we got to cut all of this shit. We have too much. We're not, this is too much money. No one's buying these books. No one cares about these characters. Let's make an event. And it was wildly ambitious. And look what happened. Now they keep trying to recreate that magic or like that lightning in a bottle effect. Crisis is one of those things that you can't recreate. You can keep doing interpretation of it if you want to, but it's not, like it's I think that you're right. DC wants what Marvel has, which is stupid because Marvel doesn't even want what Marvel has anymore. They literally handcuffed themselves to this like this canon. Now they're like everything Marvel Spotlight. Now these aren't actually canon because like DC was trying to do that, but then now they're like, we got to do everything in a gunverse. They're all trying to do the opposite of what they're like. I don't know. It's all complicated and stupid. I wish more, I want better for the DC characters because we did have some good stuff with the DC live action. We did. And I think Tomorrowverse could have been better. I think this could have been better. Maybe part 2 and part 3 and part 4 and 7 and 8. I don't know how many parts are these? How many parts?
I think it's only 3.
Yeah. Hopefully the rest of the parts are like better constructed. Maybe this part just got the short end of the stick.
So I think I love that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I love that picture with Big Barda in the back. I love anytime Big Barda's in a picture. I love
Big Barda. She's my favorite.
Yeah. I think what everybody's saying, every time we would see a movie come out, it'd be like the Phoenix Saga or the Age of Apocalypse and they never, or the Age of Ultron. It's like, you don't get in comics, these things took years to build up and then pay off. Like, this wasn't just like 3 issues of a run, and it's like, oh no, the Phoenix Saga was going on for a while to that builds up to that sacrifice. Age of Apocalypse built up for a while, and then had a whole stretch of a year, I think, of comics before like that could.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember, I actually brought them into school, and people were making fun of me. Then I had my whole class reading the comic book. That's Age of Apocalypse, right? I think that. Because when we were watching, I was like, it's been like a decade and a half, right? Since maybe more. I'm old since the DCAU finished with the right about that.
No, about 5 years. About 5.
DCAU.
Yeah,
like the original from Batman animated to Justice League Unlimited. Right?
You're talking about the original. No, that's almost 2 decades, babe. That's like a long time.
I was like 3. I was 3 years old.
No, calm down. Did my
3
freak
years
get
old?
up? I was like,
I was watching
it's only been
Static
5?
Shock when I was 5.
I was like,
my
it's only been 5. I'm younger than like last year. I thought I was older than I was by a year. And I was like, oh, I got a year back. I almost gave me a decade back. I was like, oh, time.
I mean,
again.
I had an old moment because I had an old moment recently because a 14-year-old friend, like a friend of mine, his son, I know, he was just talking about stuff. I have to ask you a question. Do you know what Static Shock is? Who?
Oh, yeah, you're getting that old man.
So it's cut off for me. It's the so I have
coming.
all moment.
It's coming for you.
I'm about to
Enjoy
bully.
your knees. Enjoy your knees. The fully functional range, not the creek. But the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, why? It's been, I was saying like 15 years, but 2 decades since that. How come they've never recreated? I got a Batman fan from my job who she's never watched the original animated series. Got her into it on HBO. It's like there's like 10 seconds in every episode where they put their foot in the animation. Like it's beyond it. And she's like, I never knew this existed. But I'm saying to say is, why does that hit so hard? And I was like, oh, we had about a decade of buildup for every major storyline and storytelling. And so even if you saw Dick Grayson on the roof somewhere, you're like, oh, that's Dick. Like I see him in the background, or even if I saw the Creeper in one panel of Justice League Unlimited, or one shot, and I was like, oh, that's Creeper. I remember his episode, right. and so it brings something out of you. Or when old man Static Shock, I shouldn't say old man, I think I'm older than him now, but old man Static Shock shows up when they concluded Batman Beyond, when they brought up that time thing with both of them, I got so hyped. but I was like, oh, and they finished, like, all those things mean something. We see Amanda Waller, all those things mean something. And DC, just take your time. You have the resources and time to just build a storyline, and everything doesn't have to have a great big animation budget if we care about the characters. And then those big moments, they'll hit.
That's why I said that I was going to say something real triggering. I'm gonna go ahead and say it now because I know Mike wants to get through the rest of the story and plot points and negatives. We're gonna go there. I want to ask you guys now. You know the run of what James Gunn wants to do. Right now, he's basically outlined what he wants to do for the first 5 to 10 years. It's gonna be monsters and gods. That's the baseline of it. Now, the big thing about this, he's already specifically stated that games, movies, live action TV, live action shows are all going to be interconnected, but in a specific way. The actors that's playing the animated characters are going to be the same actors that are going to be playing the live action version on series or a show, right? Oh. So my question to you guys is like, that's why I said that they're trying to get here. I think me and Vanessa were talking with one of the directors for, I can't remember, was it War World, Vanessa?
I interviewed him. It was Jeff Wamester.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he had said in talking to him, I was like, hey, I know you're really excited to kind of like set the stage because, you know, James Gunn's got this or that. And he specifically said, oh, yeah, I'm actually helping producing one of the things that James Gunn is working on. He couldn't tell me. But from what it's looking like, they're getting to the point of a thread that is going to allow for Elseworlds. It's going to allow for congruent storytelling. And at the same time, for the first time ever, we can have the same actor with the voice. And I'm personally excited for that because I love where this could go. When you have something like Swamp Thing was a series, live action series that was freaking dope. Nobody ever talks about it. I only got one freaking season. CW tried to revitalize that, and then CW got taken away, which is fine. But with what they're doing with this, are you guys not excited for what this could be? Because I'm not saying that we throw away Crisis. They should have done Crisis right. I hope and pray they do Crisis right. But where we're going is so exciting to me. And I wanted you guys' perspective on it because that is something that we have to talk about because we talk about, like, you know, the Creature Commandos on the animation form. We're going to get all these characters that are going to be used later. That's dope. When you got, like, you know, these specific characters in what those story threads mean, and they're taking time in developing them, I think we can get to that on an animation form and a live action form. So I'm curious y'all perspective on where things are going to go, but we're not there yet. And I think, in my personal opinion, I agree with you guys. We don't have to drop the ball with everything to get there. But I am curious y'all's perspective on where things are going.
Listen.
Go ahead.
I've been a fan of. I have been a DC fan since I was literally a child. I have been through so much shit with him, and I want to be excited, but until I see some deliverables, this is more fucking talk. It's just more talk. It's smoke, smoke, smoke. James Gunn, I do feel like can get something done, but will the ones above him let him? This is the problem. They let DC has always been at the mercy of too much corporate input and intake. Like there is no cohesion because corporate wants to do one thing, but DC has another story. We haven't had this is spilling into comics. It's all of it. It's all a mess, and that I'm not excited about it. I'm excited about it, but I'm not excited. I don't want to give them any more of my heart, you know.
Yes, like back up that DM talk. If you can't back up that
Vanessa, you're speaking everything that I've been saying because I'm the youngest one here, and this is what we're dealing currently.
Yes, you keep saying. Thank you.
No, I'm using an example.
Whoa.
Why are we catching strays? We're being born earlier.
Listen, I love being in environments where I can receive wisdom. This is why I love this.
Oh my God!
Anyway,
I'm gonna cut him out of this. Wisdom on the end of that. I mean, swear to God.
Wisdom.
What I'm saying is that with Marvel specifically, right? Iron Man came out in 2008. I was 10 years old, right? I'm now 25.
I'm about
25, and here I am.
One more straight.
I'm stamping shit.
Got my AA part RP meeting coming up, so you got to wrap.
No, make this go viral. But anyway,
God.
now here I am currently with Marvel, with the current state of that, and I'm just exhausted. Now I have a younger friend of mine, Jay King, who's he's 22, right? And he's he loving everything Marvel coming out.
I came real close to the I was about to end it.
Okay, all right, okay.
I was about to end it. You better stop.
All right. No, so what I'm saying is that Vanessa's absolutely right that, it's all talk until I believe it when I see it, right? When they announced to make the Static Shock movie and stuff, I pray, listen, if they do that and they mess it up, I would not forgive anybody. The same thing with M. Night Shyamalan with Last Airbender. I'll never forgive him. I don't care what good movie he makes. But currently today is going, there've been recent news of the Supergirl casting. And actually, Meg Donnelly, who voiced Supergirl, who also voiced Harbinger, who's the same character in this film, is actually in the running to play Supergirl live action, which I don't think is coincidence that she had history of voicing Supergirl in multiple animated properties. And now here she is trying in the running for the role in live action. I think that is a strategic move, and I think that's the direction they're going. But the point of actually getting to a point of the universe cohesion, even when it goes to multiverse and all stuff, right? It's we're making this more complicated than it needs to be, right? For example, one storyline it said in this film they need to get away was definitely the Mazo storyline didn't have to be as long as it needed to be to get to the point of the heart of with Barry and Iris. It did not have to, which I think that was the reason why people was getting away. Another good part of this film I like was the crime syndicate. I always love seeing the crime syndicate. Earth 3, that's always a staple for DC novels for y'all. Anytime we're at Earth 3, it's always crime syndicate. They have never changed that. So yeah, it's always the anti-Justice League or and I always love seeing that type of version of those characters. But to get to that point, I feel like narratively, where it goes to animated properties and film, again, you don't have to keep dropping the ball. We've seen great, amazing storylines, as you see right here. I remember that for over 20 years, man. I remember this. That's when he was gold, I loved him. Even when he was gray, I loved that episode, the part 2 episode of him. And but I felt like he was utilizing a great way at the end, but definitely did not need to be that dragged out in the beginning, in the first half of this film, where people just kind of I bet you kind of tuned out, which I was seeing some people's reviews of this film. So I don't know, but the 2 point Vanessa, to me, I believe when I see it, when you're focusing on the characters and building and not biting off more than you can chew. Because again, you have a whole legacy that you can establish if you just know who the type of characters you have and just let it play out. It's I can't just jump into Batman vs Superman when I didn't see okay, I see the dead Robin costume. I'd like to see under the Red Hood storyline where Jason get beaten, by Joker and all that. But it's off screen, and that's for you comic book people. I want to see that. That actually builds motivation. Why this
That's
person
the interesting story. When
Right.
a show or a movie, they gloss over what the interesting part is. And I was like, no, I want to. Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon had the interesting part of the story leave with that robot. Like that robot had the only interesting story in the movie. Not to cut you off, but like
No. You made a point. So like when you gloss over Dick Grayson, which is a great scene when I smile, but then later when you see, he's meeting alternate version of Dick Grayson, and which I thought that was funny. He's saying like, you brought me in as as your partner in crime and everything, adopted son. Like, well, that is irresponsible.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, but
that was funny. But
that goes into the problem of the movie, though, and that's what I was kind of getting at. It's like it's a double-edged sword. Like, so take the Amazo storyline. It sounded like the way that they kind of framed the Amazo storyline, it could have just been its own little mini movie. Honestly, like you start off from who his dad is, like how he got created, like how Lex tried to manipulate the situation, manipulating the Justice League, because all that thread of this would have been its own contained movie, even if it was a little mini movie, and it would have worked better than just kind of shoehorning it in here, because you lose that emotional connection by the end of it when Amazo's father dies, when he's manipulated in between, when him and Barry have like a long drawn out relationship because Barry's just stuck there. And, I thought that was a very strong ending, but I knew if I was watching it linearly, just that storyline, it would have been fine. Like, I think as a mini movie, it would have been fine. And the same thing with Bruce and Barry, they've got a very connected relationship in comics and in real life. You really think about what they've gone through. And so for Barry to step up and say, no, you should take responsibility for this kid, that's a challenge that Batman's probably never even thought about or processed. He went to complete defensive. He was like, this is irresponsible. I can't do this. But like Alfred did it for you. And it's like, what does that mean? Was Alfred wrong? Like, and so I think that was a thread that could have paid off later when he sees, an older version of him and look and see what the legacy that brought up from him training this boy and being in this boy's life. So again, because you got these different threads of time going on, it makes it disjointed, and it's not as connective or effective because of it. And again, if these were all consolidated small little mini movies leading up to this, I think it'd have been fine. But that's not where they wanted to do it from a narrative standpoint.
But the problem with the Amazo part is that we've seen it before. It wasn't even an innovative Amazo story. So not only are we wasting time in a crisis movie, I don't care if it's 3 parts. I don't care if it's 10 parts. It was do something different. We've seen this Amazo story and done better with a better Amazo design. I just was like, if we're gonna do an Amazo story, do something different. Like, do something different. This is the same thing, bar for bar. Like, it was the same fucking story. I'm so confused as to why they focused on that, especially because Amazo is a Justice League villain, but Amazo has, from what I can remember, has no real connection to Barry at all. So Amazo's always been more of a Justice League / Superman villain. So it was weird. It's strange. Like I thought it was a waste of time. I literally kept looking at the time and I was like, we have spent this much time on this Amazo story. When is Crisis going to start? How many times did I say that we were watching? When is Crisis going to start?
Right.
Like I figured out we were multiverse hopping pretty quickly at some point. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, okay, cool. We're getting into the story now. And I get why the story got to use Amazo in an interesting and new way. But to get to that point, we've seen it before. It was a waste of time. I'm so sorry. It was a waste of time. And I hate that because Crisis is one of the most interesting stories with literally every DC character at the creative team at the original time had every DC character at their disposal because most of them had to go. So like, it just feels like when live action, I get it. It's limited. I thought the TV show and the live action version did a decent job to begin with showing the different Earths and stuff like that. I thought that was dope. But they have a limit because, can't use this character on TV. You can't do that, blah, blah, blah. But animation, you have no limits. You're from DC. Why are you?
Right.
Where's everyone else? What the hell?
Right.
Where's Wildcat?
Yeah.
Where's the JSA? What is going on? It felt like they had a TV budget. I don't know. It was too
Where they
small.
couldn't do the
I know
things.
it's just, huh?
No, go ahead. I said, well, they couldn't do the things they could do in animation on live action. But now you in animation, you have all the characters. You can do all the stuff.
What was the limit? What was the budget? Well, it just felt like where are all the people? It just felt like the most.
It was the limit was their creativity.
Yeah,
It's like that was the limit.
But what I thought, I usually hate Amazo. Besides the Justice League and Justice League animated series, I hate Amazo. I don't like that a human on Earth came up with a robot that's more powerful than every like that. Just it doesn't jive with me. But then they had done something in this movie where it was like the parasite, and I was like, oh, if there's another movie where Superman fights the parasite and then Luthor cannibalizes his brain or something and puts it in the Amazo unit, I was like, that's an interesting story. I want to see that. But you didn't do any of that. So all that backstory, that was the most like, oh, I might like this Amazo. But you could have done what they did for him in this movie in 5 minutes. Like if you could in 5 minutes we could have came on the tail end and the creator was like, that's not what I wanted. And Amazo goes, but you realize Amazo can go at super speed, like Flash or communicate at super speed. 5 minutes, done. You don't need it. And this is one of my concerns is that I don't necessarily need the animated universe to go hand in hand with the live action. Animation can just do its own thing, have its own continuity, tell us little one-offs here and there, and then build up to these great moments. I think if you connect it too much to the movies, we're going to get a very confined, watered down. I'm leery of that. James Gunn is at a Peacemaker has probably been the best thing I've liked out of DC in a minute. So I'm not saying he can't do it. My only hope is that the animation still gets to be creative and bring us gems like Batman fighting Cthulhu monsters or like whatever. But then you have, I'm not trying to bash this in a bash DC session, but one of the things they got away from in the Zack Snyder verse-ish, whoever took over after that, is they didn't trust in the character. With Superman, they tried to make him edgy, so even the animation, he started killing people for no reason. Like, and it started like being reckless with his power. Well, that's not Superman. And I remember somebody arguing with me that well, you can't use Superman. You can't do a Superman-like character in today's market. But it's not true. You have All Might. All Might shouldn't be more Superman than Superman. Captain America shouldn't be more Superman than Superman. Like, you kept bringing these characters who are paragons in and use them in an interesting way. How's a paragon work in a world around it? How do they keep hope? How do they? If I don't feel hopeful watching Superman, you have lost the essence of Superman. Like, and I think that's entrusting. If you can get that, if you can distill down, Batman Begins changed a lot of Batman's backstory, but that's still Batman. You know, the Justice League movie tried to make Batman a joke. What is this guy with no powers and armor doing with these gods? Well, he's a brilliant mind. He has a willpower. Amanda Waller defined it's a reason why they defer to him in a lot of situations. If you can't capture that essence, if you can't write a Batman that can hang with gods, his superpower is not beating people up. That's not Batman's superpower. And I think you need to. That's my fear, is that you'll lose that in doing these other things and then rushing to the big moments instead of going, hey, we have almost 100 years of comics. We can streamline the big moments. We know where these things happen, so we can feed them in and make it so smooth running and make the best story possible using all these big moments. I know it's long. I can make it.
You're right, because like I was taking notes in this film, right? So I had a whole lot of this. I'm very passionate with this. And in terms of this Crisis story, because you talk about the other properties, I felt, we talk about Crisis, in the animated world, I thought you were gonna dive into other animated properties, like, oh, we're gonna bring the Superman from the Young Justice, show, or hey, we're gonna bring, Justice, and then this story, spoiler, this story directly ties into Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, because the things that they were focusing on, this was people like the Mazo stuff. Everyone's like, okay, I want to watch this in the Crisis. But what most people did not watch was in the other animated films, like there was a short that involved the Spectre and Constantine, right?
Mhm.
And you can see it's on YouTube. But Spectre told Constantine, "Hey, it was your fault why this universe about to go in crisis because of Justly Dark Apocalypse War." And the person you see in this film, the guy, the bearded, is represented in the multiverse, in the Crisis story in the comics as the Pariah character. But now he's been put in place as Constantine, which makes sense because Constantine and Barry were a exact result of this whole universe created in the first place. And he said in this film, you share the burden that I'm about to see watching this world die. But the thing is, most people didn't know, wait, who is that? I immediately knew, like, oh, that's Constantine. But it will take away the emotional element because you're like, wait, is this connected to Justly Dark? Is it not? Do I even care? You know, that's the biggest thing. And I feel they should have had scenes definitely building off of that in this film so where they can pay it off saying like, wait, okay, this is actually having some dramatic weight here. And which is why like in part 2 and 3, I know for a fact they're probably gonna, as Flash was the main character in part 1, Kara, Supergirl's gonna be the main character in part 2, and I don't know who's gonna be the main character, probably I don't know, yeah, maybe in part 3, but because again, there's each key characters in the comics that have never been changed, like Kara, Supergirl, Barry Allen, that has never changed, so they are very pivotal to this. Even then, like watching this universe, the Earth 1 does not have Wonder Woman. Because in the Justice Society War film with the Flash, that was in a different Earth, right? And that's why when you see Superman having a relationship with Wonder Woman, which I absolutely hate, you're like, wait, how did that happen? Oh, that's a Superman from a different universe, and Wonder Woman. Yeah,
even that was a better explanation when he was like, "No, I was with Lois." Like, I don't like the version where Superman got with Wonder Woman first and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And if they're the only two people that are close to, and they age slower, that makes more sense of them coming together eventually. I like that explanation versus the previous. Was it 52? I remember whatever one where he dated Wonder Woman.
52. We don't speak of the devil. Yes.
Yeah. Because they changed my boy Lobo to be a K-pop singer, whatever he was. I don't know what that was. Yeah, like remember it was weird. It was just weird.
I try to ignore it.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought the whole time they were watching this, I was like, oh, maybe they'll bring in, because I always feel bad that Legion, the animated series, never got brought back in anything. I was like, oh, you could bring them into this. Like, that'd be cool to see this version here. Or when y'all said Batgirl, I was like, oh, where's Cassandra Cain? And I was like, oh, it's that Batgirl. That's so cool. Like there's so many things you could do when you do a story like this, and you have such access to so many properties. Or you could bring the comic book young Justice characters back in that we never saw again, like Empress or Slowbo, things like that. Because obviously, people who were putting characters in, they were fans, or maybe they wiki different DC characters and put them in the background. Who knows? This is a better way to do it. It's a better way to do it. It's a better build up. I think, oddly enough, the Teen Titans cartoony version does better references than this did. Where you see Robin have butt implants, and you're like, oh, the famous Dick Grayson butt, the Dick Grayson booty that all the women look at. And the guys, like, oh, it's all implant. Like that's a cool reference. This,
yeah.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I feel it.
There's a baby cameo. I'm sorry.
He's so cute. Hi, baby boy. Oh my goodness. Anyway, sorry. I'll just talk to the kid all the rest of the night. It's fine. Hi.
Sam.
What's up?
Yeah, we were just talking about how.
Yeah. Hi.
We were just talking about how, like in this current film, there are missed opportunities that they could not like connect to other animated DC properties, like a Young Justice, like the fact that like there's ties to Apocalypse War and this, but there's no scenes that actually making me seems like, oh, it's not connected. That's not that's Constantine, and that's the reason why Spectre say he's the one, the burden, the scene this world die and stuff. But you don't know, except for us comic book people who take notes and shit, But like, so like, that's what's frustrating.
He's so cute. He's agreeing. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, so it absolutely could have been some small little threads of scenes. I mean, we saw it done the best in Spider-Verse. I mean, if Across the Spider-Verse is a good flagship, they could have easily used like the original animated series. They could have used like movie references. They really could have made a run for this, but I think it was intentionally left out because they're trying to cut their losses. In my personal, I feel like if James Gunn would have allowed it, they would have went that route, but I don't think they want to. But that's not to say that the next two movies may possibly do that. I don't know, but it was a missed opportunity, specifically with Constantine. The children are doing things.
Aaron Yeager just came in. Aaron Yeager was like,
learning.
Yeah,
Aaron Yeager was like,
he got it.
She talking that trash about me.
But I do think it was intentionally left out, and it was a missed opportunity, in my personal opinion, especially for this one. Because I think the thing is, if people weren't drawn in with this movie, why would they care about the next two?
Right.
Outside of comic book people. And if you lost the comic book people, it's kind of like it's up for people like, you know, the general audience to want to see more. I think that the general audience, if they don't know anything about the story, would be intrigued by it. But a lot of the general audience don't like the animation style. So
it's so hideous. Sorry.
They're already going to have their issues with it. Right, Peanut?
Can we also talk about the animation part where they were just on the ship and they were just, when someone was talking, but the people were in the background and they were all just standing around like NPCs? Was that
basically just not?
Why weren't they talking to each other? Why were they just standing
or
there?
Some little motion, or so if you knew the characters, some little perks they could be doing. Like even the creeper was just standing there, like he was not like.
That's not creeper. Creeper would have been upside down. Like
right. Like there's
people
certain
know creep. Yeah.
Little quirks you can do with these characters that it should make me. It should make me want to know more about characters. Like I didn't know much about Psycho Pirate. I was like, oh, let me look. But I was like, like, and the thing is,
oppression at all, like like oppression where I actually care. Like, oh, that's Psycho Pirate. Like, who's that?
Right.
Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I grew up in the '80s, so I can deal with bad animation if the story's right, or you make the work of I'm old. Like I'm just dust at this point.
In the '80s, grew up in the '80s. Damn, you're Gen X.
Yeah. Well, they had no care about our safety. Helmet.
You were a latchkey kid. Sorry, I was like, what? You grew up in the 80s?
Oh, that just preserved well.
That could make me feel old.
No, so that helped you out.
Anyway, sorry.
But
go ahead.
if you give me a good story, I can. It's kind of like I watched some other reviews of Echo, and they were like getting on the different characters. I was like, what do y'all want? This is the raid too. Like, give me a good story. Give me I can deal with two characters I love in a room talking for a whole comic or a panel. Some of the best X-Men stuff isn't about action; it's about their interactions with each other. Like some of the best superhero there. And if you get to know the characters, I love the little moments. Like there's a.
You see Spider-Man?
Jesus Christ.
You see Spider-Man?
There's a moment in comics where Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are in one of their jets or something.
You see Spider-Man? You see Spider-Man?
Sorry, this man's insane.
Say hey, Spider-Man.
Oh.
Yeah, Spider-Man. Say hey. Don't get shot.
Hey, Steve Miles.
You see Spider-Man? Yeah, Spider-Man. Say hi. Say hi, Spider-Man.
Hi,
Good job. Okay, this is definitely a multiverse crossover because we're in Marvel territory now.
Across the crisis multiverse.
I'm gonna do my own thing.
You should have went off screen and took that mask off. Now you just
ruined it for him. Damn.
Yeah, he's so confused. He's like, he's so puzzled.
Like, he's
it was
black.
cute to traumatize
Right. I don't know why he took his mask off.
Yeah, Miles doesn't have a goatee.
When we get older, it happens to everybody. Yes. Yes. Anyway, I don't think anything else we got.
I don't think he's coming back.
But there's a moment where Batman
He ain't coming back.
Superman and Wonder Woman are like
I don't think
Trinity
he's
are like
coming back.
in this jet and they're
No,
talking
he's
about
not
stuff.
coming
And she's like, you gotta tell her. Like, what? Yeah, I punched him. You punched Guy Gardner. And they all crack up, and you're like, that's a moment between them that they probably would never do it in front of anybody else. That or get lunch together or sit in a diner together or something like that. Did I freeze? Y'all hear me? Oh yeah.
I can hear you.
So I don't know. I just think they're not utilizing the assets effectively. You can build up these things and have us care about these characters. It's kind of like you can have an awesome fight, but unless that fight's amazing, it doesn't mean anything if there's nothing at stake. There are two characters who are clashing over ideals or for loved ones or vengeance or Count Monte Cristo type stuff. That don't mean more than the most elaborate martial arts thing you can do. So yeah, DC, I and your animation used to be so strong. Like, it used to be like, dude, these people never miss. All the animation is just never miss. And now it's kind of like, I'll be all right.
Well, I just came in the multiverse to say, I actually enjoyed this movie for the most part. They could have cut some scenes out of it, but just want to know. I think my multiverse story is better.
We agree with you, Miles. We agree.
I enjoyed the last part. I enjoyed the last section, the last third or whatever, more than I enjoyed the first 2/3.
Yeah, I agree. I think once it actually got into Crisis, I think it was enjoyable for what it was, but I knew it was like we only have a little bit left. Like I said, the Barry and Iris stuff carried. Exactly, right, King. It carried. Like I think it carried the entire movie through because like the other stuff, like the Amazing One's dead and all this stuff, I'm like, okay. Shout out to Professor Ivo, but yeah, overall, I mean, it was fine. I will watch part 2 because I need to know. I have to finish this train wreck.
Yes,
I mean, you're a DC fan. You gotta finish it.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't watch World. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm phasing a lot.
But yeah, I believe part 2 is still gonna be coming out in 2024 as well as part 3. I think possibly maybe the later half of probably spring, and then maybe part 3 is coming around Comic-Con possibly. I mean, probably perfect timing. But yeah, other than that, I just think give anybody final thoughts before we close out this review.
Think. Oh, sorry. No. Like I said, that last part worked for me, and I was going through the whole movie thinking I was going to just hate this movie, but the Barry Iris stuff saved it. If you can do that, y'all need a better editor. Y'all can tighten this up, and I think I'm here for it. I haven't lost faith. Y'all got me with that last third. Y'all lucked out.
Last thoughts. Like I said, I think I will watch the second and third parts. I wish the first part was better. I dislike any property that minimizes the Legion of Superheroes. I will go up for them. I don't care. We are a small but loud and annoying fan base. We are Legion. Damn it! Put some respect on Brainiac 5's name and Supergirl and like everyone. I hope to see more of them. And it seems like since you said that the focus is gonna be on Supergirl / Harbinger, which is a dumb choice. I'm sorry. If that's the case, then we will see more of Brainy and Kara's romance, which, spoiler, if several decades in the past, but he loses her, and this is something that is a part of Brainy's tragic life. It's ridiculous, but I want to see more of that going forward. So I would say this movie was probably a C. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sam.
Peanut, say B. Say B.
No.
Can you say B?
No.
Can you say C?
No.
Can you say D?
No.
Dang, come on. All right. So we're going to
He doesn't agree. He said it's an F.
Yeah, he says F.
Garbage.
So I stand by. I think this is a really incomplete movie. There are times where I feel like this is really good. Then there are other times it's just like I can skip. I'm intrigued and invested in where it's going to go as far as the trilogy is concerned. So I rested it at like a B- or a C. personally. I mean, I think that the things that worked, but the things that didn't, I don't know, it's just avoidable because it just wasn't congruent. Like, I mean, when I'm watching like a scene with Barry Allen and Bruce Wayne, like I want to see it pay off. And it didn't. I mean, there are moments where I care, but then it didn't really pay off. But yeah, I think we're a C. C for cat.
Cat.
Okay, all right.
Yay!
We're C. All right, there it is. There, C.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it probably a B minus because I do give you props for doing this big crossover again. That is risky to do, but also I'm like really looking forward to see it being done animated.
Yeah.
And again, if you just cut off Amazo parts and actually let these characters grow as what they were built on, then yeah, this would probably get a better story. But I am looking forward to part 2. Yeah, this is Miles Spider-Man checking out. Make sure you guys subscribe to TeamJVS on YouTube and all platforms and everything. TeamJVS, we are out.
Bye.
Falling out the top of I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing on my mind.